Hello, everybody, and welcome to this meeting, this online meeting, which is designed to introduce the concept of working groups and state branches. So on this call, I have myself, Daithí Gliasáin, and my colleague, Rhys. Rhys, would you like to say hello?
Hi, everyone. My name is Rhys Aconley, and I will be your instructor and tour guide through this tour with Daithí of Holacracy and how we're going to do things.
Great, thanks, Rhys. So I'm just going to share my screen now and bring up the slides that we'll talk to. So as mentioned, this presentation will be about introducing working groups and state branches and how they will work together to get things done. And we'll cover a fair bit of content today, but we'll make it as brief and succinct as possible because this is designed to be a general overview just to get people in the mindset of how these groups might work together and how you might be able to find your place in the organization. Because ultimately, Flux is about empowering the end user to take action in making a difference in our political system. And that will start by our own organization empowering the members to be active participants in our organization. So initially, we'll provide some context on the current organization structure, as in how the state branches and these new working groups are positioned in relation to each other and how they will interact. We will speak to the purpose and accountability of the various working groups, as in what it is they are designed to do and what is the remit of their actions and accountabilities. Then Rhys will speak to the Holacracy model and how it will work in helping us communicate and get things done inside our distributed organization. And by the end of this meeting, it should be the first step so that people feel that they're enabled to start taking action to get things done within the organization. Of course, this will be a continuous work in progress, and we will evolve all of this content over time. This is just the starting point for us to just make some progress.
We do not have all the answers, unfortunately.
No, just 90% of 10% of the answers. So this slide introduces it's a very general overview of the Flux Org structure. The things to pay most attention to here are that within Australia, the main groups and the main bodies that we have are the state branches and the federal party. That's what people have signed up to be part of, and that's where most of the action and most of the responsibility and traction and results will lie. We're playing in this political game, and it's the political parties that we've established in the various states and at a federal level that ultimately will be responsible for getting things done. Now, to create some alignment amongst the state and federal parties, we have recently set up a national steerco that meets once a month. The National Steerco's primary objective is to create alignment among the state branches and working groups, and ultimately to be accountable, to provide accountability for getting things done and ensuring that things are actually done when they're supposed to be done, and just to give us an ongoing monthly update on where things are. There's another series of videos that will provide information on what the National Steerco is doing, but the real juice of what we want to get into today is at the bottom of the screen, the working groups. And you will see that there are 4 main working groups to find that we will speak to individually. First one being the awareness working group, to do with all things about communicating the Flux message, the issue-based direct democracy concept, and really just getting our messaging out there. So to do with all things relating to comms. Secondly, we have the engagement working group, which will be about how do we engage our members? How do we activate our membership? How are we going to run events that people want to come to? Just ultimately, how do we get people to engage with Flux and issue-based direct democracy? We have the finance working group that will be responsible for all of our financial compliance and also bringing in those beautiful dollars that we need to actually make real impact in this political game. The fourth working group, and the one that actually contains, I suppose, the biggest variety of working groups or kind of sub-working groups, is the implementation working group. And the implementation working group will deal with all things that just need to be done to bring about the outcomes that we expect as part of our overarching strategy. So all things relating to administration, education, technology, and ultimately election campaigns. Now, it's worth pointing out in this org structure diagram as well that we have the Flux Foundation, which currently serves as the holding entity or the administration entity for a lot of the accounts, and essentially is there to provide overarching governance and support for the state and federal branches to do what they need to do. There will be another video that we'll create in due course that provides more context on the roles and responsibilities of the foundation, the state branches, the national steerco. But for today, we're going to focus on the working groups. But before we get into the working groups, just a very quick overview of what the state branches do and their accountabilities. So one of the main most visible accountabilities of the state branches is to hold regular meetings for the members to attend. And so we'll be giving these state branches some more guidance in the coming months about how to formalize their meetings and how to formalize the reporting back to the steerco via a state rep. There's also accountabilities in there about managing the membership administration, how to manage local marketing and getting the Flux message and concept out there at a local level. The state branches are also responsible for running election campaigns, and that's something that is very pertinent at state election time and also at federal election time, when it will be the state branches leveraging what they do at a state level. It'll be us leveraging it at a federal level. It'll be the sum of all the parts coming together to create something that works at a federal level. There's also membership communications, so just ensuring that we're communicating with our members at a state level, and ultimately coordination with the other Flux groups, just ensuring that the state branch is linking in appropriately into steerco, into the working groups and the foundation. Now, getting to the meat of this presentation, all about the working groups and the subgroups contained within. We have for now defined the four main groups that I mentioned at the start of the presentation. Awareness, which deals with all things communication. The engagement working group, which will deal with all things culture. The finance working group, everything to do with finances and money. And the implementation working group, which will be related to all things that need doing. Now, as stated at the beginning, and a very consistent message you'll hear in our organization, is that everything is a work in progress, and these working groups will evolve and develop over time. And so if you see something that isn't been fully addressed at this moment in time, that's great. Bring it to our attention, we'll incorporate it in, and we will look to iterate and make these working groups better and more fit for purpose over time. But as a starting point, we've just decided on these four general areas to try and bring a bit of coordination and cohesion to the organization. Now, the first working group is the awareness working group. And it's simply the first working group because it is the working group that has had its first meeting already. Now, the awareness working group is there to ultimately enhance public awareness of issue-based direct democracy and Flux, i.e. get the message out there via traditional communications, through marketing, through social media, everything that we can do to just get our message out to as many people as possible. Now, the accountabilities for the awareness working group, as you can see in this slide, covers a fair amount of things. But primarily there will be all things relating to marketing and the media. There will be work and accountabilities there about how the various parties, state parties, communicate via various platforms that we're going to use, i.e. social media, press releases, and so forth. The awareness working group will also coordinate with the education working group, which is part of the implementation working group, to figure out the best ways to communicate our messages. There will also be coordination with another working group to develop platforms to engage with as many people as possible. And without just reading what's on the slide here, it's this working group will essentially be about how can we condense our message down into the most efficient messages to really communicate to both, the people that we've already brought onto this idea and people who've never encountered this idea. How can we get across what it is we're doing in the most efficient and concise way?
And what excites me about this awareness group is also what excites me about Flux, but appealing to different levels and different sections of society is going to be an amazing task the awareness group has for them. Making Flux's appeal digestible to people, to disparate interest groups, and engaging with those interest groups. Really, really fun stuff.
Then the next working group that we'll speak to briefly is the engagement working group. And this working group, as I said previously, is all about culture and how we build this organization in a way that we want to be part of. Because without culture and without developing our organization in this way, all we'll have is a great idea that people won't want to engage with. Our organization will live or die based on how well we can engage our members and make our members the most passionate and empowered and enthusiastic ambassadors for what it is we're doing. So the work of the engagement group, from my perspective, will be hugely important.
Can I jump in with an analogy here, Daithí? I'm going to start weaving in some talk of holacracy, and something that holacracy talks about, as an alternative to hierarchy where you have top-down sort of systems. Holacracy envisages different groups, and they see organizations as living things, and these groups are kind of like organs of the organization. So the awareness group might be considered the voice of Flux, the ones that announce, the organ that announces our presence and really engages people to let them know that we're here and perhaps even bring energy in. The engagement working group I see as the connective tissue, the connective space that gives structure and support to the organization as a whole. The reason we enjoy doing what we're doing, and I do think that while a lot of us are beavering away working on laptops, it is the face-to-face contact and the time that we spend together that really forms bonds that let people work together well. And that's the work that the engagement group will be doing, amongst other things.
Yeah. So listed on that slide there's a number of various accountabilities, but I think Rhys spoke to it well there. This is just about building our organization and getting our members enthused and engaged with what it is we're doing. Rhys, I'll hand over to you to take us home from here.
Happily. I may need you to hit the slides, but you'll know when to do that.
Yeah.
The finance working group is pretty straightforward. They're fundraising, and I imagine they'll be doing that with perhaps the engagement working group or perhaps on their own steam through events, fundraising through the other as many platforms as is appropriate, and also in terms of compliance, issuing receipts to donors for anyone who gives donations, making sure that we're ticking our political boxes and not taking ourselves out of the game. Organ-wise, I see finance as the mouth of the organisation. It chews up that money and delivers those dollars to the other working groups that can use that energy so that we can grow. Yeah. Implementation working group. This is a big one. You can see that by the amount of areas there. I guess for me, the implementation working group is the guts of the organization. That's where the thing happens that we say we're going to do. So, one of the big things is coding an app that actually, models and enacts issues-based direct democracy that shows, us voting in real time on issues. That's a big job. So coders are very welcome into this group. There's also going to be an administrative element in terms of, us as a political party, making sure that the rest of the organization is valid as a political party, that we are complying with those state national regulations. There's a lot of work with other working groups in this one because this is essentially what Flux is here to do. So any developments or even communicating the philosophy and the value to the awareness working group is something that the implementation working group could do. It's envisaged that there might be a subgroup specifically that goes into education and the philosophy of issues-based direct democracy and researches that area and so passes that along to the awareness working group. So when the awareness group is putting our message out there, we have references and supporting theories and research to back the idea that this is good. And as well, yes, and the last point there, working with state and federal branches on election campaigns, the implementation group is going to be a bit of a central hub when there's big election campaigns, and so working across all the areas is a big job. Daithí, did you want to say anything else about the implementation working group?
Yeah, I think, as we said, there's so much going on in the implementation working group that this is an area where it should be very easy for people who want to contribute to find some place to fit within this. Like when it comes to administration or election campaigns, for example, there are a huge plethora of tasks that people could take on board. So if you're a doer, if you're the sort of person who just likes getting things done, I think the implementation working group is where you might find yourself at home.
Okay, so moving on to Holacracy, which is the model that we're going to try and see if it works to get things done. A big difference with Holacracy is the approach to management. And I mentioned before, we're not using top-down pyramid-style management, and we don't really even rely on specific people. What we do have is roles, and that's what we've been taking you through here with these working groups. The different working groups are the purposes that Flux needs to fulfill in order to grow. And those roles all have what's known as accountabilities attached to them, the things that those roles are expected of them. And yeah, we don't rely on specific people, but if you're a member of a specific working group with specific accountabilities, then you work to fulfill those accountabilities. What that does is it breaks hierarchy. So when we're making decisions, we know what we're supposed to do. Our role says it. If we're making social media posts and promoting Flux that way, we know what we have to do, and we don't need to seek, permission or buy-in from any higher ups. yeah, and I'll speak a little bit more about that as we go on. So, as mentioned, we're shifting authority down the chain to the people who are actually making the decisions. The general principle when making a decision in Holacracy is, does this fit within my role? If so, yes, do it. The other consideration is, in making this decision, do I affect anyone else's role, or do I affect anyone else in the organization? And if that's a yes, so for example, if I'm making a social media post that says something beyond which has been said by the education group, for example, then I'm putting out something that the education group hasn't said. So maybe I want to check with a member of the education group to say what I'm saying is correct. And if that's cool, yep, do it. So we think about how our decisions interact with the other areas of the organization. And if there is an overlap, then we consult. But if not, we do the thing. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that for now. So as we can see, work comes in. We spend most of our time doing the work. And as you can see to the right, there's also these things called tensions. And processing tensions is what Holacracy does. In old management style structures, tensions are often sensed by members of the organization, and a tension is a disconnect between what is and what could be, So it could be something that's a bit off, like the work isn't getting done and it could be, or it could also be an opportunity. Work's getting done fine, but hey, there's this thing that's just come up. Normally, a lot in traditional organizations, people with connection to management can pass those tensions up, and management decide to act on them or not. And any tensions that management sense, they decide to act on them or not. But traditional organizations miss a lot. And what Holacracy aims to do is that anyone who senses a tension can process that tension. And that's done in one of two ways. If it's to do with work and work that needs to be done, then it's done at a tactical meeting as the group doing that work. If it's about who does the work or the way that work gets done, it's done at a governance meeting. And that's that. I don't want to go too deep into Holacracy now, but the thing you need to remember is that if it's just about sort of, how we're going to do this as a team, and we need to share some information, then we do that for a tactical meeting. If it's about, oh, hang on a second, the way we're doing this isn't quite working, we need to rethink, how we organize here, or maybe, we need to restructure something, that's done for a governance meeting. Governance is for the issues that are a little bit deeper than just a quick meeting with your working group peers might be. Did you want to say anything on that, Daithí?
Yes, I think it's worth pointing out here that this is just the beginning of the conversation and just an introduction as to how Holacracy will work. We will endeavour to provide more information on what Rhys is talking about there in how a tactical meeting will be run, how a governance meeting will be run. But for now, it's just about introducing these concepts about how we hope to work moving forward.
Absolutely. And that touches off another point. We can flick to the next slide, but in Holacracy, there tend not to be, there's no managers in Holacracy, but there are sources of support for teams. So someone like me or someone like Daithí, traditionally we might be somewhere high up in the organization, but in a holacratic organization, we are there to support teams. So we're there as coaches. So I hope to be working with different teams to get clarity on this stuff, and also see what kinks come up along the way. So as you can see, there's a rhythm to work. This is how we get things done. The most often we'll be meeting will be, and I'll start at the bottom here, will be with the working groups that you're in, talking to the people that you're doing work with. That can be done on a very ad hoc basis, just if there's someone you need to talk to them, and if there's something you need to do it. That's very much your own pace. But then there will be tactical meetings where the working group gets together as a whole and say, all right, how are we going? How are we going in terms of actually meeting these accountabilities? And that's a chance to identify things that aren't working, things that need to be done differently. And we would recommend that happens anywhere between monthly and weekly, depending on how the work goes. State branches, next level up, you know, they can be similar story. They can be monthly, perhaps a little bit more often when there's an election underway and there's a lot more work to be done. The Steerco currently meets monthly. And then we have the foundation meeting where we're meeting quarterly, and that's our a chance to really look at how we're doing across the board. Daithí, did you want to say anything about those rhythms?
No, you've covered it all there.
Cool.
So where to from here? So now that we've introduced the concept of working groups and provided a little bit of context on how things work together, I would encourage people to, first of all, attend your local meetings, because while it's great being able to connect with people online and see these videos and have online conferences, there is nothing to compare with meeting the other people who are into this just like you are, and meeting them in the flesh and seeing them face to face and connecting and just kind of sensing what it is we're trying to do. So I encourage people to attend a local meeting. From there, or aside from that, you can also start getting involved in the working group conversation via our Slack channels. And we will be looking to try and utilize Slack a lot more to try and keep people informed of what's going on across the various working groups. At the moment, we have 4 channels set up for the working groups that you can see there, and everyone is free to join those channels and see what's going on. And I encourage people to start, participate in there and get involved. And when the working groups set up online meetings or phone calls, join in, participate. And you may not feel that you have a lot to offer at first, but attend and listen in and just get comfortable with engaging with these other people and figure out it might take you some time to figure out where you'll best fit in. There's so much that can be done in our organization that it can be a little bit intimidating at first. You might think there's so many areas I'd want to get involved in. Take the time to just get a sense of what it is you really want to apply yourself to, and just get involved in the conversation. So that brings to point 3. Find something you want to do. Find something that would make you excited and passionate about spreading this idea or engaging with people and speaking with people. And when you do it, you'll find that you feel so good about it. There's that initial step of thinking about doing things. But until you actually do it, we don't get the reward and that feel-good factor about actually doing something. And bringing it back to a personal level, we're all here to contribute something to the world. And I truly believe that Flux is a really good avenue for people to take some of the energy that they have and to give back something to try and make our society a little bit better, to try and bring more people into a participatory democracy. And when you do it, I guarantee you will have a smile on your face and you will feel good about it. From there, it's just going to be about repeating steps 3 and 4 until we have fully implemented and acted upon our strategies and objectives. So from my perspective, thank you for taking the time to listen to myself and Rhys talk through this material. This is the introduction. I hope that we've been able to circumvent some of the questions that people might have and give you a bit of an idea as to what it is we're doing. But this is the beginning. So just take this as an introduction and come join us and see where the journey takes you. Rhys, I'll let you close us out today.
Live long and prosper.
Simple as that. Thank you very much.
Cool.